we got a few things here. And I'm trying to look at something here. Hold on a second. Hold on. Is this thing supposed to this thing is supposed to get me going. So let me get this on. As this is supposed to at least have me on here. I'm not looking at yeah, hold on a second, y'all. I'm not sure if y'all are able to see me out here right now live. I need to get this thing working here for a little bit, but just bear with me for 1 second because it's supposed to have some joint going on right now, and I'm not necessarily seeing what I need to see, right? But like this thing here is supposed to, I mean, you hear the audio, but you're not seeing the video. So that's the thing that I'm working on. But shout out to everyone that is currently listening live here right now, because I'm on a different interface. This should, be able to have me on, but I'm not necessarily seeing a thing here for the video. This is not going well, at least right now. But shout out to Trill and Jesus M. Here going on right now. But the thing is, it's like it's supposed to show me on the screen here. I don't know what's going on with that right now, and why it's not showing the video. I'm not necessarily on the thing here for StreamYard. I'm on a different interface, and on this particular interface, this is supposed to at least have me on there, but you got the thing there for the audio, but you don't have the thing here for the video. And that is not necessarily cool here, at least on my end. So you're pretty much just getting the audio here real quick. I might see if I could try a different thing here before I could try something else on this thing here. But as you see that this is under a different interface. So I'm trying to figure out, why it's able to get me through for the audio, but not the video. That is not necessarily cool. Like it should be just straightforward and everything like that. So let me see here. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this right here. This should do it. There we go. Now, I mean, this shouldn't necessarily be this difficult, so to speak. But yeah, now you see me here on this particular instance. But I wanted to see if I could get something going else here. And the other thing too was like the reason why I'm pretty much starting this thing here at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time is because today, of course, y'all know in this week or whatever it is, that the NFL is starting up. And so with that being said, of course, it's fantasy football. And in 2 leagues, yeah, that's right, in two leagues that I'm in, they want to have the draft today. And one of them is basically going right now. And I had to, basically put my thing on auto pick. At least I was able to go through the first 5 or 6 rounds to go on auto pick there. You know what I'm saying? To have that going. So at least from this point forward, I have no idea what's going on. At least I have a starting lineup that's set up. But we got to see what my freaking backup quarterback is, or I probably got like Ezekiel Elliott on the bench or something. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little bit crazy there, when it comes to that. But big ups for everybody on here that's live. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Lonnie Lee, shout out to Trill Clinton, shout out to Jesus M. That's on the YouTube. Like I said, we're also on through Rumble and also on Twitch. You know, I don't know what was going on in reference to the whole thing for X, but that is kind of something that, you know, we kind of tried to see if we could work out. Oh shoot, man! I had this thing up. Now I was just looking on. This is just an impromptu type joint here. I'm back on my joint for the fantasy thing, and they got me. They got me thinking Geno Smith as a backup quarterback. Oh no! Yeah, this is why did it get me Geno Smith? Yo, I had this thing set, man. I think these fools. You know, the thing about it is when you're in a fantasy football league and you got like you're in a league that has like a great number of participants in, like this a 12 to 14 team league, and you got a whole bunch of picks, and you could have a whole bunch of picks on your queue or whatever it is, but man, that opens up the opportunity for a number of your picks on your queue to be stolen. And that's basically what's been happening, at least from like round 7 or whatever it is. Right. So listen, that's why I ended up getting Geno Smith. Hey man, I might have to be rooting for Geno Smith this season, man. I need him to have another comeback season because, hey man, I can't stomach having Geno Smith as my backup quarterback right now. It is I have Jordan Love. I drafted Jordan Love there for at least my starting lineup there on fantasy football. So I think Jordan Love is going to do really good here in this particular instance there. So that was that. But all right. Yeah, it took a little bit. I wanted to see if we could also try something too. And let's see here, you know, how this goes. But also I wanted to, as this is, you know, like I said, a brand new interface here as far as like what I've been doing you know, in the past. So we're gonna, you know, get right into this thing here with the main topic, of course, when it comes to Jaron Boots Ennis and Brian Norman Jr. So you know, with that being the main topic, of course, you had the whole thing with Jaron Ennis, of course, being the IBF welterweight champion, and Brian Norman Jr. as the WBO welterweight champion. You know, I had talked about this, you know, in one of my previous videos, you know, that we kind of had, you know, a little bit of back and forth as far as like negotiations are concerned. And, you know, with what had been going on with the offers that had been sent out to Brian Norman's team. And the thing about it is that, like, okay, Boots has sent out an offer, or Matchroom has sent out an offer there to Brian Norman's team. That was rejected. Then they upped the amount and sent out another offer. You know, that was rejected, and supposedly there was a counter offer to that. But they brought, you know, they had one other offer that was on the table there for Matchroom. It was around $1.8 million, and that was still turned down. And which, you know, kind of like is something there on one front. But the other thing is that, you know, we had the thing there where, you know, at least I got from, you know, a source that was from both camps, or, you know, talking with both camps, that you had the thing with Norman's team asking for above $2 million. Now, I had a thing there where it was north of $2 million. I heard it was around 2.5 million. And, you know, 2.5 million for your first defense of the WBO welterweight title in a unification bout against Ron Ennis, you know, that's kind of crazy. Now I think now I might be able to try to look for one particular offer there, because I want to also see something, because this would kind of like be a similar situation to when you had, I think it was when Gennady Golovkin, you know, y'all that have been following me, right? That Gennady Golovkin had a unification bout there versus what it was, David Lemieux, right? And that was like David Lemieux's first defense of the title that he had, because he had won it in the previous bout, right? So the thing about it was that I think it says reported here that Lemieux was getting 1.5 million for his fight against Golovkin, and that Golovkin was getting 2 million. That was a report, like 57%, 43%, but 1.5 million for David Lemieux. Now, thing with David Lemieux was, if I'm not mistaken, David Lemieux, you need to hold on real quick. I'm getting these pop-ups in reference to the dadgum draft. But David Lemieux, he had that vacant IBF middleweight title where he won it against Hassan and Dom, right? But that was basically a hometown fight for him. He's from Montreal. That fight against Hassan and Dom was in Montreal. So at least he was able to win the IBF middleweight title in his home arena or hometown or whatnot, right? So then after that, he was able to get himself in position to fight Gennady Golovkin. Brian Norman won the WBO interim title with the win over Giovanni Cabrera in Giovanni Cabrera's hometown. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about it was, it's like, okay, you have that. What would be your first defense? But something kind of like, came up, and thing about it was, it's like, hey, you have this thing here up in the air with bout Ennis, right? So you could have a unification bout. Now, there were multiple factors that were added on to this as far as like bout Ennis is concerned, because one, he had already had a defense of that IBF welterweight title against David Avajian in Wells Fargo Center in July, right? So he has that defense. And the thing about it is like he was looking to see if he could have a unification bout there in the welterweight division. We know about the other title holders. One has just recently been elevated to full champion in Iamana Stanionis with the WBA welterweight title. And then you have Mario Barrios, who was named the WBC full champion after being the interim champion, as Terrence Crawford had moved up to 154, won the WBA 154-pound title. So he officially has given up all of the titles there at welterweight. So you have Mario Barrios as the WBC champ. You have Iamana Stanionis as the WBA champ. Of course, you have bout Ennis there at IBF champ. And now you have Brian Norman as the WBO champion. Now, with that being said, you kind of like have your hand out there, so to speak, as far as like, hey, you want to unify, you say that you want to be undisputed and that type of stuff. So you want to see if you can make unification bouts. Well, the thing with Iamana Stanionis, he's pretty much been out there with Richard Schaefer and also with the whole thing with TGB Promotions or Heyman Boxing. I don't know necessarily about Heyman Boxing, but y'all see Iamana Stanionis be involved in Heyman Boxing events or PBC events, so to speak, right? So as far as like Stanionis being out there, that wasn't really much of a possibility. Also with Mario Barrios, when there's been reports out that Mario Barrios could be in line for a bout against Manny Pacquiao, which to this day I still don't understand why that would be the case. And we all saw what Manny Pacquiao was doing out there in the exhibition bout. So yeah, I don't understand why that would even be something in the cards there. You feel me? So with that being said, now you got bout Ennis looking for an opponent, right? And the IBF supposedly, I don't know if the IBF is like forthcoming in their news or whatnot, but they have basically Eddie Hearn had basically made the statement that the IBF had put out the mandatory status in that they would issue a mandatory challenger for bout Ennis. And the number one ranked fighter on there is, as many of y'all know, Karen Chukagian, right? Yeah, that's the same Karen Chikazian that Jerome Ennis defeated in January of 2023 in Washington, D.C. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, for me, what's the point of having Jerome Ennis in line to be facing Karen Chikazian again? Now, like I said, through my source, and y'all, and a lot of y'all that know me, know my source, whatever it is, y'all know who I get for the sources when it comes to Jerome Ennis. And they said that Boots was like, man, we ain't gonna be fighting no Karen Chikazi. And this was weeks back, so that's why, they were pursuing those particular unification fights with Mario Barrios and with Iman Stanionis, and then here recently with Brian Norman. So that's why you had this whole back and forth with Jordan Ennis and Brian Norman. And for Brian Norman's team to kind of like have that number put out there that's over $2 million to fight Jerome Ennis is kind of crazy. I did bring up that recent example with David Lemieux. First defense of that IBF middleweight title was going to be against Gennady Golovkin, and he didn't even get he got 1.5. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much how this whole thing back and forth went, and it ended up being nixed, nullified, all that type of stuff. And now we got a report, at least from Dan Rayfield. I posted on the article on the boxingsource.net that you're going to have Brian Norman Jr. defend the WBO welterweight title against Derek Cuevas on November 8th in Norfolk, Virginia. And that is, likely going to be the co-feature bout to Keyshawn Davis versus Gustavo Lemos over there in Norfolk, right? So, with that being said, I don't understand why they would kind of have this whole PR thing going on or whatnot, and that. Yeah, I got folks like blowing on my phone and stuff like that right now. I don't know what's going on, man. It's crazy. It's crazy or whatnot. Yeah, but like I was saying here, thing there with Brian Norman, he's going to be involved in a co-feature bout on the top ranked card in Norfolk, Virginia, right? So y'all pretty much like have an idea of like how much money you'll pretty much get for that particular bout. And that was the thing that like Eddie Hearn was very frustrated about. I think they had a conversation what it was after the Diego Pacheco Marciej Sulecki fight, where Eddie Hearn pretty much said like, look, like you having all of these offers and we're giving you these offers, we're sending you these offers, and you're declining and you're declining, and it's like, why would you ask for this much money when you're not headlining any bout? You didn't headline anything. You weren't in line to be headlining anything, or at least it seems like that right now. And you're just pretty much giving up your status, so to speak, right? As the WBO welterweight champion. At the very least, you were trying to at least try to say, hey, let's get at least one bout where we could be a main event. So, but didn't necessarily do that. So if you're not going to have that status, why would you ask for this much money, for a unification bout? And yes, we did hear from Brian Norman Sr. Yes, we have heard from Adrian Clark, who's pretty much part of the team of Brian Norman. But yeah, you like that. That's way too much. That's way too much, man. Shout out to Jesus M, man. He says, man, we ain't talking about a fight. Not a fight. We talking about contracts. And that's pretty much Jesus M's thing here. He says, hey, man, boxing is like too much talking, not enough fighting. You know what I'm saying? It's too much talking, not enough fighting. Yeah, man. I mean, that be the business of boxing. You know what I'm saying? That be the business of boxing. It's crazy. You feel me? And shout out to Tip Bayless, man. He said what he said. Barrios beats Pacquiao, and he's a new cash cow at 140. And he says, well, we need that rematch for the culture. I don't know, which rematch they're talking about. But you have to see what we gotta see what that's going to be all about. But yeah, that whole thing there with Brian Norman, like I said, you're going from a potential unification bout against Boots Ennis. That would be in Philadelphia. Big event. Pretty big event. A lot of people would be interested in it. To being a co-feature bout against Derek Cuevas on the top ranked card. Now, at least for me, I don't know what his situation is with top ranked boxing. I've heard that he had like a deal where he gets 3 fights a year under the current top ranked contract. He's already had 2 fights this year. So here with Derek Cuevas, that would be his 3rd bout. So I guess he would be cool for the rest of the year. But with that being said, what would be next out there for Brian Norman Jr.? Now, thing about it is like that WBO rankings, man, that ain't looking on too hot. You know what I'm saying? You go through. I'm gonna see if I could try to share this joint or whatnot, man. If I could, get this going. Like I said, this is a first time thing here, man. I want to see how this goes because we got this thing going on here under a new interface. I'm not working with StreamYard or whatnot here anymore. So let's see how this goes, right? All right, bet. So let's see how this thing is working. I wanted to see if they could get that going, but I am not necessarily seeing like how this is going. But it's supposed to have the rankings on there for the WBO. But at least right now, it ain't really looking like it's doing all that. At least not on my screen, what I'm looking at right now. You feel me? But let's see. All right, bet. There it goes. Like I said, man, this whole thing is different with, Rumble. I'm doing it under the Rumble interface instead of the StreamYard interface. And that's, for those that are listening through audio too. Like, I mean, when I'm doing this thing through video, we doing this thing brand new, all off the cuff or whatnot. And so that's it. I just saw what you just posted, Tip. Oh no, we don't need it. Come on, we don't need that rematch culture, man. Come on. Yo, we do not need no Boots versus Karen Chikati. Come on, man. Don't do that. Come on, bro. Come on. Oh man, no. That ain't it. Oh boy. Okay. So we got the whole joint right here. All right. And you see there it shows, well, I ain't put it up there for the WBC, but I'm gonna put Mario Barrios there as the champion in the WBC. As the WBA had recently announced that Iamana Stanionis is the full champion, and you could view those rankings for the WBA as they just put it up last night, right? But I also have it there right there for you. And you see there with IBF, Jaron Ennis, number 1, Karen Chikazian, which is very interesting there. I'll talk about that later. And then there for the WBO champion is Brian Norman Jr. Number 1 is Shakram Giasov, which is interesting given who Giasov is under. You got Alexis Rocha, Jin Sasaki, Solomon Sissoko, Karen Chikazian is there. You got David. And then number 7, Derek Cuevas, right? So you're going to have Brian Norman Jr. In a co-feature bout against Derek Cuevas over there in Norfolk, Virginia, in comparison to maybe a Shakram Giasov. But here's the thing with Shakram Giasov. Giasov is promoted by Matchroom Boxing. I don't know if y'all were following there a few weeks back or pretty much like almost a month ago when they had that fight card over at the BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. A couple days before, they were having fights that were out there in Santa Monica Pier. And in one of those fights, you had Shakram Giasov in that fight card. Now, that particular fight was, really controversial as far as like what was going on in that, man. I don't know How how he was able to get through that, but it almost seemed like a setup of sorts. But he was able to win that bout against Miguel Parra over at the Santa Monica Pier, even though it was by split decision. But he has been there at number one in the WBA for a good little minute, and now is ranked number one in the WBO, right? So with that being said, I'm like, hey, they could probably set something up there with Shakum Gearsoft to go after Brian Norman Jr. But I mean, at least right now, that's not necessarily in the cards. You feel me? Outside of that, you got Gearsoft out there, and the number one for the WBA, Alexis Rocha. Got to figure out what's going on with him. Jin Sasaki. If I'm not mistaken, I thought Jin Sasaki would have been involved in a bout here that's coming up. But let's see. Yeah, he's supposed to be on, if I'm not mistaken, he will be on that Naoya Inoue card that's coming up on Tuesday. Yeah, he will be against Camille Bala or whatever it is. I don't know who that guy could be, right? But yeah, Jin Sasaki that's already lined up for a fight. So he's pretty much out of the cards there too, right? Suleiman Sissoko and David Papo, Papa, whatever you want to say, is whatever. But it looks like Top Rank wanted to just have Brian Norman Jr. have a voluntary defense of that WBO title there, which was vacated, so to speak. So you do have that, right? And with that being said, like, you got to look at it this way. I don't know what Top Rank has planned, for Brian Norman Jr. I know that there was talk about him potentially having a bout with Teofimo Lopez. But it looked like the offer that was sent out to Teofimo Lopez, or the proposal, was that Teofimo Lopez would be fighting on a Friday instead of a Saturday. And because of that, Teofimo Lopez nixed it. So that kind of like was out the window. But with that being said, I kind of like brought this up in other conversations. I said, well, if you have Brian Norman Jr. as the WBO champion and he could have potentially fought Teofimo Lopez, how much money would he have gotten to fight Teofimo Lopez? How much money would he got to fight Teofimo Lopez? That would have been the question there that would have been posed, as far as like comparing that to having a fight against Ron Bucenis. Because if you think about it, with Brian Norman Jr. under Top Rank right now, what would be the biggest fight available for Brian Norman Jr. under Top Rank, or within Top Rank? Maybe it would be against Teofimo Lopez. So that's why I posed the question: how much money would it have been for Brian Norman Jr. to fight Teofimo Lopez? And if you have that, just compare that to how much money that he would try to get out there for a unification bout, whether it gets Jaron Ennis or anybody else. But with that being said, like 2.5, yeah, that's crazy work. It's definitely crazy work out there. It's definitely crazy work. But I wanted to see other things here too. When it comes to, like I said, with Bucenis, right? You had Karen Chikazian there at number one, which I feel is kind of interesting. It's really interesting. It's wild that they would have Karen Chikazian there at number one, because at least to me, I don't see where Karen Chikazian had any type of bout that would put him there at number one. That's for starters. And the thing about it is that it's like, well, how would you have Karen Chikazian there at number one when you just had Cody Crowley there at number one? And my other question to that is, Cody Crowley was supposed to be the opponent for Bucenis, right? but he wasn't necessarily clear for that fight. So with him not being they're clear for that fight, then why would they put Kieran Chikazi in there at number one? Conor Benn is there at number three. Jin Sasaki is there at number four. You got, of course, you see there Lewis Crocker at number five, but I don't know. I don't think they could put Conor Benn out there. And the thing about it is like, why didn't the IBF have something in place to where they could have an eliminator bout, for that number one or that mandatory spot? If Cody Crowley is out of the picture and not cleared the fight, why not just have a box off between Chikazian and Conor Benn, so to speak, therefore that mandatory spot? Have your final eliminator, IBF final eliminator with Kieran Chikazian and Conor Benn. But it looks like it didn't seem that way. Tip Bailey, shout out to him. He said, well, at least $500K for Brian Norman Jr. in a potential bout against Teofimo Lopez. So, okay, put that in perspective. If you say that he's getting about $500K for that Teofimo bout, why would you ask for over $2 million for a bout against Bruce Ennis? That just doesn't look right. It's just I just don't see why they would do that. You know what I'm saying? Tip also says, hey, look, Hearn is looking to make Ben versus Kieran Chikazian. Yeah, that at least that's what I thought would be the case, is that you would try to angle for Conor Benn and Kieran Chikazian there for that top spot there in the IBF rankings, and that would be for the IBF interim title. And then Jaron Ennis would have like another like voluntary defense or has something where you could maneuver another one of your fighters there and chop them gears off to have a bout for the IBF belt. I don't see why they would have Jaron Ennis face Kieran Chikazian. That just doesn't make much sense to me. Doesn't make much sense. All right, but there's still also the other option out there for Jaron Boots Ennis. And that's for him to move up to 154. Now, 154, if I could scroll up here real quick, on the video joint, you ain't going to be able to hear this on the audio version, as this will be available on audio form through Spotify and other audio podcast platforms. But here with the 154, you have, of course, unified champion Sebastian Fundora, WBA champ Terence Crawford, IBF champ Akram Murtazaliev. Now, the whole thing with Murtazaliev, they're trying to line up the fight between Murtazaliev and Tim Tszyu. We get the date for that here, in a bit, that Tim Tszyu and Murtazaliev will fight for that IBF title. You know what I'm saying? And then after that, you got the thing there with Fundora, and we don't know what his situation is going to be. I know that the WBO had ordered Fundora versus Terence Crawford, which is crazy work, because Terence Crawford was originally the Mando, and he ended up electing to face Israel Madrimov. But the WBO tied the interim title to that particular bout that took place on August 3rd, which is crazy work. But that's a whole nother story. So with that being said, I don't know if you're going to have Sebastian Fundora going up against Terence Crawford this year. I just don't see it, because I don't see Terence Crawford having another fight this year. I would be surprised. He's only had one fight per year since 2020. So him having another fight this year would kind of be surprising. It would be good for him to do that, but I would think it would be surprising if he did do that. You know what I'm saying? But we have to see here, because that purse bid is supposed to be coming up at the end of this month, if I'm not mistaken. So you do have that. That's number one. But, with Terence Crawford, having the intentions of seeing if he could fight Canelo Alvarez, and we have to see what happens with Canelo Alvarez after September 14th, because after his bout, Canelo's bout against Edgar Berlanga, then we could see if he would have any interest in a Terence Crawford fight, Yeah, it's crazy, Tip. You've never seen someone fight for an interim and a major title. Yeah, that, I can't necessarily pinpoint that unless if I go to two particular examples here. I'm gonna see if I could do this, right? So this particular situation reminded me of two fighters. Um, one is Vasyl Lomachenko. I think he was able to, fight for a vacant title while being a world champion. So I think that was one instance. The other I would say is I was thinking it was Gennady Golovkin, but I have to be I got to be able to confirm that. I thought Gennady Golovkin was able to fight for an interim world title while being the world champion there. But I can't necessarily go on the rec for it because the rec had recently made a modification to their website as they do not recognize the World Boxing Association on their website anymore because there is a completely different website that's involved with boxing records now. Crazy story, but that's for a whole nother thing there. But yeah, I'm really thinking that would be the other example is Gennady Golovkin when he was, I feel like he was the WBA champion and he fought for a interim title. So I'm trying to pinpoint that if that happened here in this. Okay, yeah. So when Golovkin fought Marco Antonio Rubio in 2014, he had the WBA championship in middleweight. He was the IBO championship in middleweight, and he won the WBC interim middleweight championship while he was, pursuing the Canelo fight. So there's that. So that's the thing that we have here when it comes to Terrence Crawford. He's now WBA. He won the WBA full title against Madrimov and was able to gain the WBO vacant interim super welterweight title. And the WBO has placed that order once again for Crawford and Fundora to go into negotiations. Tip says he's seen it done in women's boxing. I mean, yeah, he probably was done in women's boxing. But the thing with women's boxing, I have to say it. There's nowhere near as many fighters that are available, particularly in the higher weight divisions. So you could have interim title tied into just about any fight out there, But here in this particular case, like I said, with Terrence Crawford, yes, he was the WBO super champion in welterweight. So he had that mandatory status when he moves up to super welterweight. But with him not being able to have a fight available against Fundora immediately after Fundora's win against Tim Tszyu, he elected to go after the WBA champion. And at least for me, if you're going to elect to go after another champion, that should be able to relinquish your status as the mandatory challenger. But it didn't. WBO attached that interim championship to that fight. So that's how you have this particular situation. So like if I even scroll down, you have WBA champion there, Terrence Crawford. And then if I go down to the bottom here on the website, you have WBC interim champion Virgil Ortiz Jr. and WBO interim champion Terrence Crawford. So that's what you have in the situation there at 154. But like I said, I'd say you put in boots in this, enter him in at 154, have him go up against one of those guys out there that's at 154, like say Israel Madrimov, right? Or Sergey Bohachuk. Those two guys have had, their fights in August, in consecutive weeks. Madrimov losing to Terrence Crawford, Bohachuk losing to Virgil Ortiz Jr. Get yourself in the mix. That's how you could get yourself in the mix at 154 really quick. Feel like those fights are out there. You could potentially have maybe Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly could be a potential opponent out there for Boots Ennis. But the thing about him is he is locked in a bout on September 21st. There, he's going to be on that UK fight card against Liam Smith. So you can't necessarily have a bout with Josh Kelly because he's already locked in on about September 21st, and he's not going to have that quick turnaround. So Josh Kelly is out. So you have those two there in Boychuk and Madrimov as potential opponents. You feel me? I have to see like if there's anyone else out there within 154 that Boots could face here in November, but I would rather have him try his luck there at 154 than to stay at 147 and have a potential bout against Karen Chikazian. Or if there was like any other bout that's available at 147, then you could say, hey, Karen, check this out. We got some money for you. We got some money for you. You feel me? Let me go ahead and get you this money, and we're gonna fight, somebody else here on 147. Because ain't nobody out here interested in a rematch between you and Boots Ennis. You feel me? So that's that. So I don't know. Shout out to Adam Hurley in the building, and Jose Chavez in the building. He says Crawford is retired. Hey, listen. If there is no chance, and we've kind of like had this thing here where I had an early conversation. Shout out to our guys, brother Greg and Jason of Angry Man Sports Media or AM Sports Media. And Greg had mentioned the whole thing about if there would be a potential fight between Canelo and Terrence Crawford, and it's like they're not necessarily all too confident that there will be a fight there between Canelo and Terrence Crawford. And if that's the case, where's Terrence Crawford going to go for another fight? If he's interested in money and that type of stuff, where is he going to go for a fight? I say he should continue his career at 154 pounds, but we had the whole thing, as I mentioned earlier. Terrence Crawford has been fighting once a year for a good 4 years now. So it's unlikely that we see him in the ring against Sebastian Fundora this year. So then what? What is he going to do? We got to figure that out. My guy Tip Bayless on the YouTube chat says, hey, mark this in your notes. Lester Martinez versus Canelo on Cinco de Mayo 2025. Let's talk about the thing there with Lester Martinez, though. I'll just do this here real quick. Lester Martinez has an upcoming bout September 11th there on the Pro Box card, right? He, will be on there for Pro Box. He's been on a Pro Box, before. He was there of course, here in DC. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Tip on that. Feel me? He had the bout against Carlos Gongora over in Washington, D.C. at the Pro Box card that they had there with Lamont Rose Jr. headlining that. He has his upcoming bout in Plant City against Joe Sean James, September 11th, Pro Box. There's been a report there from Chava Rodriguez of ESPN Deportes or whatever, that you could have a fight card over in Saudi Arabia in November that involves a number of fighters that are under Golden Boy, but they would have Lester Martinez involved in that card. I think it's against Bekmatir Malakuziev, right? So that would be a really quick turnaround there for Lester Martinez. and that would be like what, three bouts there real quick. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Shout out to Talk Twins in the building. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like Joe Sean James, September 11th, they're Pro Box TV. Be sure to check that out. And then it said Lester signed there with Pro Box or whatever it is. Yeah. So, but hey, we've seen what's happened there with fighters that are under Pro Box. They've been having a couple of good fights under Pro Box, built up their record, and that puts them in position for bigger fights there in the future. Now, I mean, we had one there with Radovje Hot Rock Kalajic. He faced David Morrell Jr. on that card at BMO Stadium. He wasn't necessarily, successful there. But we had as we scroll down on these rankings, the featherweight division, and you see Angelo Leo as the IBF champion. He had a few fights there under Pro Box that put him in position to face Luis Alberto Lopez, and he was able to get that knockout of the year leader, at least for me, in that 10th round of that bout to win the IBF title. So hey, you're able to get yourself and build a good record there over on Pro Box. You could be put in position to have a good fight here, in the future. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing, man. It says, yeah, Lester's gonna cook. Yeah, he would be able to cook him. He would be able to cook him, but that's kind of like the situation there, on that front. But for those, real quick, for those listening live, whether it's on Rumble, on YouTube, whatever it is, just be able to support the channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, and whatnot. But man, one time for my man, I ain't even see this, man, because I gotta flip between chats, right? I wish I was able to go on this joint, but shout out to my guy Slap Happy Gorilla, man. Slap Happy Gorilla, we had good conversation on the Angry Man Sports Media channel there, so shout out to him there with the 199 super chat on here, man. Salute to you, my guy. Y'all be sure to support that Slap Happy Gorilla on that note, man. But yeah, I ain't even see that joint here at first, because like I said, this is my first time thing, working with the the Rumble joint. So it don't even show all the stuff here, at least from the YouTube bit. So I didn't even see that. You feel me? So with that being said, yeah, back at this thing here with a conversation. I'm gonna do this thing here full screen. But yeah, that was my joint, man. I don't know what I missed, but bet the house on Monster KO, and by Monster I mean Berlanga. Come on, guillotine. Come on, man. Come on. Oh man, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Oh yeah, but yeah, that was the thing there in reference to what I brought up with Lester Martinez and his particular situation there in the super middleweight division. But that kind of like segues into the next topic there before I go into the thing there with Naoya Inoue. Super middleweight, we had about there Diego Pacheco going up against Marciej Sulecki. Okay. Diego Pacheco is a contender out there in the super middleweight division. Was there at 21-0 in this upcoming bout against Marciej Sulecki at the as some would say, the Punch Bowl over in Carson, California, or Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. Great venue for boxing. I'm telling you, it's one of the best venues out there for boxing is the Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. Right. But it's going up against Sulecki. That came in there with a record of 32 wins and 2 losses. There, he's had a couple of fights, a little bit above 160 pounds, but that's where a lot of us know Marciej Sulecki was at 160, being at middleweight, having his bouts against like a Daniel Jacobs, a Gabe Rosado. Was able to defeat Gabe Rosado. Also fought Demetrius Andrade there, and also Jack Coquet there in the middleweight division. But he had this bout here against Diego Pacheco at super middleweight. And for Pacheco, it was more about, seeing, how he'd be able to do against a, rugged fighter there in Marciej Sulecki. Even though he had those 2 losses, he had never been stopped, But Pacheco, he's there, with at the height of 6'4" in the super middleweight division. And, I think that was really interesting to, see Pacheco there being able to, at least, like I said, he was able to use his height and reach, and then use the jabs to kind of like open for more punches there against Marciej Sulecki. But, the thing with Sulecki is Sulecki was kind of like right there in front of him for most of the time. So with that being said, he, kind of made it a little bit easier for Pacheco to find the target, and a lot of, and if y'all were listening to the live, conversation there on the zone, they were like kind of pinpointing that, hey, maybe we could see something here for Pacheco to get a stoppage in the 6th round. And well, we pretty much did get it, and it almost was like a good little setup there by Diego Pacheco, because for the majority of those rounds leading into the 6th, he was landing with right hands, but he wasn't really dedicated much to the body. And in the 6th, he was able to, have a combination with the left or right, and the right, you had Sulecki pretty much have a guard, and he kind of like went down a little bit when Diego Pacheco threw the first 2 punches. And then he came back with the left to the body. And perfect left to the body. Boom! And he just had Marciej Sulecki curled up like a little baby. Big ups to Supreme Beast Boxing Talk out here in the building. Of course, one of my brothers out here in the DMV area, man. Salute to you, my man. But yeah, I mean, you had Marciej Sulecki there in pretty much like fetal position down in the ring, man. It was a wrap. It was over. It was done. It was completely finished there. So you had a knockout victory there for Diego Pacheco, and he is still undefeated. They're now at 22-0 with his 18th win by way of knockout. Now, currently, he is rated number 1 in the WBO. He is rated number 4 in the IBF. He is rated number 4 in the WBC. So he's out there as one of those guys that could really be a name, so to speak, to watch out for in a super middleweight division. Now, after the fight, yes, you did have his promoter there, Eddie Hearn, say, hey, listen, he's number 1 in the WBO, mate. He's number 1 in the WBO. So he could be the one that's next in line to face Canelo Alvarez. Now, I know that, what was it? My guy, Tip said Lester Martinez versus Canelo on May 5th. I don't know. Like I said, Pacheco's out there as number 1 in the WBO. And, hey, I mean, Canelo has had a defense against the WBO mandatory before. He's had, that WBO Mando when he ended up, what was it? He fought, who did he end up fighting there for that WBO mandatory? Because I know that, you had that particular instance where, Canelo don't like he'll only face mandatories that ain't necessarily much of a challenge or whatnot. So you had Canelo fight John Ryder last year. John Ryder was the last WBO mandatory there for super middleweight. So now you have Diego Pacheco, they're currently ranked number 1 in the WBO. Will the WBO order that as the mandatory? We'll see. But with that being said, that kind of like leaves Canelo with not that many options out there in the super middleweight division. That's not all too cool. That's not what the business is there. Super middleweight. While they do have a number of fighters that if you match all of them up together, they would make for some pretty good fights. But with the expectations of Canelo Alvarez, they really don't match up by any stretch of the imagination. So with Diego Pacheco, I would like to see him against a Jaime Munguia, which was also mentioned. But with Jaime Munguia recently signing to Top Rank, looks like they're lining up Jaime Munguia to face Christian and Billy after Jaime Munguia has his bout that's coming up here. What is that, on the Friday? Was it on that Friday night where he's supposed to be going up against Eric Bazinian? I think that's supposed to be September 20th there against Eric Bazinian. So after that fight that takes place, don't be surprised if you have Jaime Munguia versus Christian and Billy, and they're both like ranked in the top 2 in the WBC rankings. That's an eliminator right there that you could pretty much set up, either an eliminator or it would be for the WBC interim super middleweight title. So with that being said, for Diego Pacheco, what could be out there next for him? You would have to say, hey, maybe a Kevin Sadzo, or I don't know, man. Not even a Vladimir Shishkin. I don't even think that's going to be the case, because Shishkin could be facing William Skol for the vacant IBF world title. So we got a number of other matchups out there in the super middleweight division for Diego Pacheco, but Jaime Munguia, that's unlikely. And of course, with Canelo, that's also unlikely too. It says on this first topic there, when I talked about Boots Ennis, says perfect scene or scenario is Boots versus Stanionis and Barrios versus Norman Jr. and the winners for Undisputed. I mean, that would be that would be really good. That would be really good. But we haven't heard much in reference to Iman Stanionis. Whether he's going to have his first offense of that WBA belt, elsewhere or whatever. But Barrios versus Norman, I don't know. Barrios is there, of course, under Heyman Boxing or TGB Promotions that has the production thing under PBC, and Brian Norman Jr. is currently there under Top Rank. So that would probably be another scenario there for Brian Norman Jr. and their management team to say, hey, how much you gonna pay us to leave Top Rank in order to be part of the unification bout? That would be the similar scenario. So they pretty much, with that whole thing with Boots Ennis, they kind of played their hand. So as far as a potential unification against Stanionis or against Mario Barrios later on down the line, if they're still signed in the Top Rank, they the parties for those two other fighters, they ain't really gonna be all too hyped to go after Brian Norman to see if they could get a unification that way. It's gonna be, I would say, it's easier for Stanionis and Mario Barrios to work out something to have a unification bout there than to go towards Brian Norman Jr. number one. And then, like I said, with Boots is right now the number one guy in the welterweight division. So they would have to go to Boots and say, how much would they be able to get for that? You feel me? So there's that. Now, they talked about that thing there with Diego Pacheco. Like I said, he had that win there in the Matchroom Boxing's main event there that was on the zone last night against Marciej Sulecki. 6-round stoppage victory. Good body shot. Pretty good body shot. But like I said, they're in the super middleweight division. At least right now, there are a number of fighters that already are looking like they're lined up to have fights there. So for Diego Pacheco, he really doesn't have that many other options out there, unless maybe we see what happens after Canelo Berlanga. And of course, we are highly favoring Canelo to basically wash Berlanga, put him in the dirt or whatever you want to call it. But after that, Maybe have Edgar Berlanga and Diego Pacheco fight each other or something like that, you know. Or like I said, Kevin Sajo, who's there as a highly ranked contender in the super middleweight division. But outside of that, you might not have that many other options. They're in the super middleweight division out there for Diego Pacheco. So there's that, man. Just real quick, big ups for everyone that's listening live right now. Of course, this will also, be available there in audio form through Spotify, also like Apple Podcasts, through Amazon or whatever it is. So y'all could also listen to it through audio form through there. But biggest for everyone that's listening live here currently through YouTube, Rumble, and also Twitch. So there's that. Shout out to those on the live chat that I've talked about here. Tip, Alberto just getting in here. Supreme Beast Boxing Talk. Y'all check out Supreme Beast Boxing Talk on YouTube as well. Guillotine is also in the building. Talk Trends in the building, and a number of other folks that have been able to join in live. Now, wanted to also get into this whole thing here with Naoya Inoue. He has that upcoming bout where he defends his undisputed super bantamweight championships against TJ Doheny. Yeah. Some of y'all may know the situation there with Naoya Inoue. We had his previous defense of those undisputed titles. He ended up stopping Luis Neri on May 6th. And, it looked like we were going to have Naoya Inoue have his next defense against Sam Goodman. Sam Goodman was there, currently ranked number 1 in the IBF in the WBO. But for some reason, Sam Goodman was like, you know what? I'm not necessarily ready for that fight right now. So that's why we have Naoya Inoue versus TJ Doheny, man. I'm like, come on, man. This is for the undisputed super bantamweight championships against the number 1 guy out there by far at 122, one of the top fighters pound for pound, being able to get massive numbers over there in Japan. And you mean to tell me that you ain't necessarily ready for that fight? Come on, man. You ain't getting no other shot like that ever again. So that's pretty much what I say about Sam Goodman. You ain't even getting another shot like that ever again. So you pretty much is out the picture. Just get out the way with that. So now you got TJ Doheny, who is ranked number 2 in the WBO, number 7 in the IBF, number 6 in the WBA, number 7 in the WBC currently. He has a record of 26 wins and 4 losses there. Currently residing in Australia. He's lost to Sam Goodman. He's lost to Mick Conlon. He's lost to Daniel Morman. And he is lost to Internet Baluta. Okay, so those were his 4 losses. Yeah. So that's why, this particular fight, I don't even think Naoya Inoue is going to, have that much trouble there against TJ Doheny. So I feel like it's going to be an early stoppage, and that it'll be another defense of those, undisputed super bantamweight titles. Now, with that being said, what would be next for Naoya Inoue? He would be, 28-0, after this. And that would be, his third defense of that, or second defense actually, would be his second defense of the undisputed titles. So then what else would be out there for him at 122? MJ Akhmadaliev? I don't know. That should have been a fight that should have already happened. Hasn't happened. Like I said with Sam Goodman, you pretty much get him out of the way. Ramon Cardenas, I don't know. Elijah Pierce, we had Elijah Pierce that had his bout on Friday on OTX 10. He was able to headline that bout on OTX 10 there. And he, looked like he was, doing fairly well in his bout that he had against Jose San Martin. Ended up being a unanimous decision win. But it will be some time before they will probably have Elijah Pierce put in position to fight for a world title. And my conversations with Elijah Pierce, he's called out Sam Goodman multiple times. So he would, really want to fight with Sam Goodman there first. And there, he says that there have been other fights that were available that he would like to have, and they ended up passing on it. So we got to see what will be next out here for Elijah Pierce. But it's like we have to wait until 2025 for Naoya Inoue's next bout. So my thing is, are you going to look at those guys that are still, that are available there at 122, or are you going to, try your luck there at 126? Now remember, as the undisputed champion, you move up, you're pretty much automatically the mandatory challenger for the WBO title, currently held by Rafael Espinoza. Now, there have been talk about Rafael Espinoza and Robeisy Ramirez having a rematch. But as of right now, I haven't seen anything that says that particular fight is official. So if that's the case, why not just have this fight against TJ Doheny, wash him, and then say, hey, I'm done with 122. I'm moving up to 126. And hey, you have the whole thing there with Top Rank that you're working with, right? So you got Rafael Espinoza out there. You got Bruce Carrington out there. You got Angelo Leo, who recently won a belt. So you got a number of fights out there that's available to you at 126 that would look a little bit more intriguing than staying at 122. So I'm like saying, hey, why not go up to 126 and try your luck, see if you can get another belt, be a world champion in another division. So how about that? Alberto, you got Ismael Barroso there. That's also fighting on that Naoya Inoue card, and that's why it's going to be tough, man. We're, at least for me, we got, of course, tomorrow, you got the Labor Day holiday here in the States, and so you go from that, and then this is supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken, it's scheduled for 3 a.m. Eastern time here in the U.S. as far as like the fight card starting, and I didn't mention. That also on this card is Jin Sasaki versus Kamil Bala. But yeah, you're going to have Ismael Barroso against Andy Hirioka. And, in my previous conversation that I had with Matt of Brunch Boxing, we did mention that particular fight. That's the fight that we're looking forward to. They're in the super lightweight division. It is still going to be, or that is for the WBA interim championship at super lightweight. Yes, you do have Rayo Valenzuela as the WBA champion by defeating Isaac Cruz, but you still have Ismael Barroso there as the interim champion. And well, as long as he still holds that interim title, he still has, that thing where he could be put in position to fight for the WBA full title. But if Andy Hirioka defeats Ismael Barroso and becomes the new interim champion there at super lightweight, that could open up a number of things there for other fighters, because Andy Hirioka could be another one of those attractive fighters there from Japan that other contenders at 140 could go ahead and face. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the king, man. Headshot King says, what has happened to the sanction bodies? They need to make it mandatory for unification fights to happen. Good point. Good point. I mean, you got it to where it's like, and we've had this happen multiple times over the history of boxing, that these sanction bodies will name mandatories that will just make absolutely zero sense, and that if it's a potential fight, like no one will be interested in it, even if it's like somebody or a fighter that's a world champion that a number of fight fans may have interest in, but the opponent is just not enough for them to be like saying, hey, I want to see that fight. And as I mentioned earlier there, particularly with Jaron Boots Ennis and the IBF, kind of like having Karen Chikazian as the number one ranked fighter and, pretty much a mandatory challenger, that doesn't necessarily look right. But we have to see how that goes there in that particular instance. You know what I mean? You might as well drink a coffee on Monday night after Labor Day festivities and wait for the card to start. Hey, man. Hey, listen. I will be at an event at least that ends at about 9 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll pretty much be at home, with some good time to at least, get like a nap or something like that or whatever it is, and then be up and prepared to watch that fight card that's going to take place in the Ariake Arena in Tokyo, Japan on Tuesday night. Feel me? So that's that. I might have to check a couple of other things here, man. He says, I don't even know why I didn't even show this. Tip, Shishkin is signed there with Demetrius Salita, some Salita Promotions, which reminds me, I was supposed to be talking with Demetrius Salita last week, and I never really caught up with him. So actually, tomorrow might be a good time to catch up with a number of people there. I'm gonna see if I can catch up with Demetrius Salita. I'm gonna also see, like, after this is done, I'm gonna get a text with John Easter and see if I could set up something with John Easter, because I was supposed to have that interview up, but haven't necessarily done that. Guillotine here says that he's disappointed that the most anyway is still talking about more fights in 122. Looks like the short answer to that is that they could keep making millions fighting anybody at 122, so why bother moving up? Yeah, it's almost like, Inoue is the money man, or pretty much the face of Japanese boxing. So it wouldn't really necessarily matter who his opponent is at 122, as long as the fans are still buying it, still buying the tickets. As long as the fans are still able to watch them on, I think they got them on Amazon over in Japan, then they don't even have to necessarily, worry about it. You know what I'm saying? You got somebody from Team Casemiro on here. Oh man, hey, that's something. You know what I'm saying? Guillotine says Casemiro was right. Oh man, yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, man, as long as you got Naoya Inoue getting them numbers, whether it's in Ariake Arena or the Tokyo Dome or wherever it is over there in Tokyo or whatnot, he can fight pretty much anybody and pull them numbers. As long as he's able to pull them numbers there at 122, it don't matter if it's, like I said with TJ Doheny, or he could wait and face Sam Goodman, right? Or, he could face a Ramon Cardenas, or he could wait for, Elijah Pierce or Liam Davies or whatever. As long as he gets those numbers in Japan, he could just stay right there at 122. But I'm saying, man, this whole talk about him going to 126, and I said what the potential opponents are out there available for Naoya Inoue are. Like, those are very attractive bouts there at 126. And what he would be like, what, a 5-division world champion? He's there, like he has that thing there with super bantamweight. He was there at super flyweight. He is there at light flyweight, right? So he'll be a 5 division world champion. That would be crazy, So that's the thing about it. Yeah, he flies the Philippine flag there, representing Casemiro. So yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up there. But I mean, yeah, that's the thing with Inoue. I mean, if he has that particular situation as Guillotine mentioned here on the live chat, that if Inoue just is able to make the same amount of money fighting anybody that's available there at 122, he would. I mean, say what would be the point of going to 126? But that kind of like nixes all the talk about Naoya Inoue potentially moving up to 130, because what it was like months ago, about a year ago, there was some talk about baby Naoya Inoue could potentially fight Tank Davis. I'm like, come on, man, what are we doing? What are we doing here, guys? Like, Tank Davis has fought fighters at 140 pounds, and you mean to tell me that Naoya Inoue would be facing Tank Davis? Like, come on, what are we doing here with that? You know what I mean? Oh man, it's just wild situation, But that's mainly what I had here, at least for the main topics out there for this particular instance of the Boxing Source podcast. We got to see what else is out there potentially in the boxing world. Like I said, you got that fight card coming up on Tuesday night. We got to see what's up, later on down the line. At least next week, I'll be, probably talking about the fight card there for that Canelo Berlanga fight, right? And I will be preparing to make the trip over to the UK for that fight card at Wembley Stadium. Yes, I will be there, and that will be a scene, I'm telling you. But like I said, I mean, it's a reality season card. I know that they had like I forgot like who was going to be the performer in this. I gotta look that up, man. I don't know if it's like some type of rock group. But listen, I see about 6 fights that are on this card over in Wembley Stadium. Okay, we saw what happened over in Los Angeles. We seen what happened here over in Saudi Arabia, man. Man, I'm telling you right now, ain't no way I would be at Wembley Stadium for those 6 hours plus. That ain't happening. No, I'm not doing it. I don't care. I'm not doing it. I am not doing it. If I see this thing, listen, I did pull the application, but I already got a ticket, man. I'm going. I'm not showing up at no, like, say, for example, I'm not showing up at Wembley Stadium at no 3 p.m. Their time and staying out there till like 9, 10 p.m. That ain't happening. No, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna do that, man. So still looking forward to that. It's about a few weeks out. We'll have some more content here on the Boxing Source for y'all. We're gonna see if we can put up some more interviews, more takes on the boxing topics that are going on in the sport of boxing here. But like I said, I mean, this was like a first time ordeal dealing with another streaming interface here. And you know what, is if I'm able to incorporate more things onto this, I might just use this here from this point forward. But because at least I'm able to see everything, just about everything here from YouTube here on that front. But with that being said, that is the conclusion of this September 1st, 2024 edition of the Boxing Source podcast. I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.